So previously, my background is entertainment. So I worked overseas for over nearly 6 years, and 2 of them being with Disney on the cruise ships. Working overseas, I mainly entertained young guests, so youth is really a passion of mine, hence why, you know, this job role is really benefits that experience. So the role that I'm in is a very unique role. It's not something that you'll normally see very often, but you know, the experience of having entertainment has really helped this. So just to give you a bit of a background information about this role, the role here isn't just about being a character that turns up on a match day. It's a lot more than that. So we are a full-time mascot team, and I run that mascot program, and like I say, have done for 9 years. The program is there to develop and to deliver fan engagement for our younger audience. They are our next generation of fan, and we need to make sure that we are targeting them and we're doing things that engages them and within the club. And that's not just on a match day. We do work within all the departments across the club. That's not, again, just a physical appearance. It's not Mighty Red, the mascot, just turning up to an event. It's actually a digital-based program as well. So I don't know if any of you have seen, or if you haven't, then please go and check that after this call. He is very active over on social media, hitting 200,000 followers on Instagram recently, Facebook and Twitter. It's a massive program, and the club has invested in it for that reason, for us to target and do something different for our young audience. Like I say, my background in entertainment has really helped in that, and the experience of, you know, developing entertainment that is engaging and fun for young people, targeting at 5 to 12 is our target audience. So just a bit about education. So where we say education, all of that again is focused on performing arts and childcare. As I've grown and I've developed within this role, and it has turned very digital, that being on web and social media, we have had to learn in a fast-paced business as well. Sometimes we don't really get that opportunity to learn as quick, you know, in advance as what we would like to. We have to learn on the job, as they say, in quite a lot of the other roles as well. And it has been really, really important to make sure that we take that time out, and that we make sure that we are on the right channels and talking to in the right places to the right people. And the experience of the team around me, I've been very, very lucky that in Liverpool we do have a lot of people that are professions in social media and also in marketing. So the current role that I sits in the marketing team, which has now been turned into future markets. So we are not just looking now at that 5 to 12-year-old market. We're looking at general future markets for teens, for adults. What are those next trends, and where can we be before anybody else is in them spaces?
Great stuff. So in terms of your other roles that you've previously had, you talked about you worked in Disney. How do you think that's helped you in this particular role, and what was your role at Disney, and how did that come up as well?
Okay, so my role in Disney, I worked on their cruise line as an entertainment host. I started off as just a youth but as a youth counsellor, where we used to look after all the children's activities, the children's clubs, if you like. Obviously on a cruise ship, that's very, very busy because parents want to have some time on their own. So we had lots of different activities working with characters there. Obviously, we know Disney, don't we? We know all the characters, and we were lucky to have those activities that were based around them. And then I moved into an entertainment host, so where I was actually performing the event. So rather than just facilitating the event, I was actually delivering it. So for instance, I'd give you an example. We used to do a detective activity where Goofy was obviously my support, and we used to take them on a little hunt around I'm probably not explaining it very excitingly, but it was brilliant. So I was performing as a deliverer of that event rather than a facilitator. And I think bringing all of that experience, if anyone has, we all know Disney, if we've not been there, if we've never been there, or, you know, we've just seen it on the TV, we know what they're like, we know the experience. When we go to Disney, you know what you're going to get. And that was really important for me to bring that to the club, because we are Liverpool Football Club. I'm biased. We are the best. We do everything very well. And we were actually one of the last Premier League clubs to actually have a mascot program. As I said previously, we are very different to any other club, if that be in the UK or the US. We have a full-time program that's not just a match day entertainment. It's every single day entertainment, if that be live events or on social media or on web, or supporting you guys at the foundation, going into schools, educational programs. We use Mighty Red, the character, as consistent role model. Footballers change on a day-to-day basis. This character is never going to change. Similar to Disney, Mickey Mouse always looks like Mickey Mouse. He's never going to change. I mean, he might get a bit older, but he never gets the lines. So thankfully, you know, Mighty Red's exactly the same, and it's going to be something that hopefully the children can grow up to engage with in all of their life. So from starting now, hopefully, however young they are, they'll be with us and they'll remember us, and that helps them to integrate into the club and our values of the club of being a family club, and that we're there for them.
Yeah, it's really interesting and really important engagement piece, isn't it, for the youth of Liverpool? And just one more question: are there any potential barriers you faced on your pathway to your career you're at now? A lot of the participants on the call might be starting off on their journey, or might be looking for a career change, or so those potential barriers are really interesting to see. So yeah, if you could.
Yeah, 100%. I think in any job role, we're all gonna face barriers. It's just life in general. For me, I think the hardest thing for me was, as I said before, we were the last Premier League club to have a mascot program, and because of my experience within Disney and how I can see how characters engage and how they benefit young people, I found it very hard to deliver my passion and my enthusiasm of this character to other members of staff that potentially have been in the club for a long time, and it was very, very different to what we were used to. So I think that was a barrier for me, not because people were being negative, they were accepting of that, they just didn't understand it. So I think rather than it being a skills barrier, it was more of a personal, how I could deal with that, and understanding that not everybody's going to have the same beliefs or passions as you. It's about how you approach them and try and get them to see a different perspective of what they potentially had at that time. Hopefully I've broken down quite a lot of them barriers, and you know, we are where we are and still going strong. And one of my other barriers, which again I did mention earlier, was, you know, the whole change and the fast pace of the digital side of it. Obviously a lot of my experience is entertainment, the physical aspect of it, providing a great customer experience for the whole family, not just young people. I think the digital space has been something that's been a barrier, because it's not something that I've got qualifications in at this present time, but a lot of experience and a lot of support from the business around me. Obviously we're growing and developing all the time, so we are on courses constantly, or always looking at how we can improve. But I think sometimes the job role changed a lot, and it was the barrier of, okay, I don't know that, so it was how can I come across that barrier.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thanks so much for that, Emma. And we'll come back to you in a moment with some more questions. Thank you for that. Sarah, over to you now.
Yeah, no problem. So my job title is Associate of Club Operations. So basically the club operations team manage the central business functions. And what that means is basically we have oversight of the entire business, and we try and streamline business processes and encourage best practice basically across the club. But my primary role when I joined LFC was to work part of the major events and projects team for planning applications to host such events and projects. And I guess how I got there, so for those of you who are local, I went to an all-girls school in West Derby. And I didn't not like school, but I didn't particularly love it either. And when it comes to having the decision to kind of continue with school or stay on and go to sixth form or go to college, I decided to go to college, which on reflection, I was glad that I made that decision, because I felt like in school it was very much kind of, you know, do this and get your grades, and you need to get good grades to get a good job in life. Whereas I felt like when I went to college, the onus was put a little bit more on you. It was kind of a mentality of, if you don't do this, it's only you who's going to reflect badly, or it's only you who's wasted your time. And I responded quite well to that, in the sense that if I didn't kind of get me head into my course, if you like, that I was only wasting my own time. And when it comes to going to university, I was a little bit on the fence. I felt like obviously I'd done, like everyone does, I'd done a lot of studying up until that point. I'd been to school, I'd then gone to college, and then it was the potential of a further 3 years of studying. But where I went to college, they offered me the opportunity to do my first year of university at a satellite campus, if you like, which was on the college that I went to. So I already knew my tutors. I had a good relationship with them. So I went on to do advertising, which was as part of the University of Salford. But the first year was in Carmel College, which is where I went to. So I'd done my first year there. And then I went to Manchester for my second year. And quite honestly, I didn't like it. I didn't like university. I didn't feel like I kind of gelled with the course, with the rest of the kinds of with the students on the course. And I wanted to get out there. I wanted to start working. I wanted to start earning a little bit of money. So my first student loan, I actually invested in £800 worth of dresses, which I don't think you're supposed to use your student loan on, but I did. And I went on to sell them dresses online. So that £800 then turned into £1,600. And I carried on kind of with that. I set up this business, and I decided that after 2 years I was going to leave university, which meant me graduating with a diploma rather than a degree. And telling my parents that I was leaving university after 2 years went down like a lead balloon, to be honest. My family were quite academic. My mum had a degree, my brother and my dad have both got masters. So they really encouraged the kind of go to school, you go to college, you go to uni, and then you get a job. And I didn't want that. I wanted to just get out there. I wanted to start making money, and I wanted to start kind of living my life and getting money so that I could go on holidays and I could do nice things, basically. So I had that business for around 2.5 years. And at that time, my friends started graduating from university. They started getting jobs and entering that career world. And my job essentially was to run this business online and go to the post office once a day, which sounds great. But I think kind of, knowing the climate that we're in at the moment, working from home can be quite isolating. And that's how I felt. So I decided that I wanted to go out there and get a job as well, basically. And obviously I had a passion for business and I had a passion for fashion. And I seen a job role come up with Harrods in London for brand manager of designer jewellery. And I applied for the job. And interestingly enough, I think this was my first kind of experience of accent discrimination. And it wasn't from kind of anyone in London or anyone through that interview process. It was actually someone in Liverpool who turned around to me when I told them that I had an interview for Harrods and said, what are you wasting your time going down there for? You won't get it with that accent. And I'd never experienced anything like that before, and I didn't understand why. I think my first reaction was, well, why not? Why would my accent have anything to do with me not getting a job? And I kind of used that little bit of negativity, if you like, to turn it into something positive. And it made me feel even more determined to prove, this person wrong, that my accent has got absolutely nothing to do with my skill set. So I went down to London. I had my interview with Harrods and I got the job. So I lived in London for a while, which I absolutely loved. I had so many experiences down there, and I just loved living down there. But I was young. I was living well above me means. I was living like a stockbroker, and I absolutely was not on stockbroker money. So I moved back up to Liverpool, and I got a temporary contract with a regional construction contractor. So basically they were putting they were bidding to be part of a new construction framework, and they needed someone to help out with the graphic design. I'd studied advertising, so I had that graphic design experience, and I went in initially on a 2-week contract, which turned into 6 weeks, which turned into 10 weeks, which turned into 6 months. But I never wanted to be a graphic designer. So 6 months in, I turned around to the business development manager of the company and I said, this isn't what I wanted to do. It was kind of something that I'd more fell into, and it was paying me and all the rest of it, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. So when I was kind of working on these different bids, I was going out to site and meeting with the project managers and learning about the current project that they were on in order to get the evidence and the experience to put into the next bid. And what I first kind of noticed was that it was a lot more than a construction project. There was a lot of community engagement going on. Say, for example, if that project was building a local school in Runcorn, stands out as one of the first sites that I went to. You know, it was the impact that that school was having on the children, on the community, the long-lasting kind of significance of the school, not just the project, not just the building. So I started to get into more the CSR, the community engagement side of things, and communicating what the business was doing. And it moved from a regional role to I become business communications manager of the Northern region. So I had Liverpool, Manchester and Leeds that I looked over, and we had about 50 sites at any given time. But I think naturally being from Liverpool and being based in Liverpool, I spent more time on the Liverpool sites. And at the time, Liverpool City Council had a scheme called the Liverpool Schools Investment Program. And I think they built around 18 or refurbished 18 new schools at the time. And the projects went from between kind of 10 million to 40 million pounds, the kind of refurbs or the new builds were. So I had a strong relationship with Liverpool City Council. And the company who I worked for, they really invested in me, and they see me becoming business development manager of the Northern region. And again, I was in a very secure position. I had a nice car. I was earning a wage, but something didn't feel right, to be honest. I kind of felt like there was more that I wanted to do. I'd got myself in this role, and I could have stayed in this role, and I could have had, a great career, and I would have been well paid for it. But I had a lot of adrenaline inside of me as well. I wanted to get off, basically. And how it started is I went on a 3-week holiday to Thailand. And I was there, and I guess I got sight of the good life. And whereas I was on a 3-week holiday, I was meeting a lot of people who were just starting their journey of going traveling, and they had so many more places to go. But I knew that I was returning back to the 9-to-5 office job. So I returned to that office job, and I made the decision that I wanted to go traveling. So I worked for a few more months. I saved a little bit of money. And in April 2016, I packed my bags and I was off. And I remember my mum saying at the time, she's going to give up this job, she's going to sell that car, and she's going to be home in 6 months with no money. And that's exactly what I'd done. Only I didn't come back in 6 months. I come back a year and a half later, and I had no car, I had no job. And I was like, what the hell do I do now? Basically, I've just had a fabulous time, but what do I do now? And I really wasn't sure. I didn't know what was next for me. And I had an interview with another construction kind of contractor in London, in the city. I got the job, I moved down to London, and I knew it wasn't right. I knew that kind of, Liverpool's my home, Liverpool's where I should be. And I think I took that job because I needed money, I needed a job, but it wasn't right for me. It wasn't a right fit. And I didn't stay there very long at all, to be honest. I knew straight away it wasn't right. And again, I come back to Liverpool. What do I do now? What am I going to do next? And one day I got a call off a recruitment consultant. And she said, I've got a role here for a community engagement manager. And I said, who's the client? And she said, Liverpool Football Club. And I said, oh, okay. Like, me is perked up then. And she said, I need you to write a statement on stakeholder management and engagement. And I'd done that based on the previous experience I'd had with Liverpool City Council. And I got an interview. And I didn't know a lot about football, to be honest. I'd never been near Anfield or Everton in my life. I had very little interest in football, to be quite fair. And I remember pulling up to Anfield Stadium for my interview. And I just went, oh my God, I just could not believe it. I think usually when you go for an interview, you go into an office. So to pull up at this stadium, it was just so overwhelming. And I went up and I met my manager in one of the boxes. And every time she put her head down to write a note, I was just looking out at the pitch. And I absolutely couldn't believe it. and I got invited back for a second interview, and then I got told I got the job. And unbeknown to me, it was because a big part of it was the relationship that I had with Liverpool City Council, because obviously Anfield being in Liverpool, we need to engage with the community, with local councillors, with the council on things such as planning applications for concerts, or any potential kind of, if we're looking at expanding the stadium in any way, such as the potential upcoming Anfield Road stand, should we be granted permission, so all them projects is what I work with in regards to community engagement and engagement with local councillors.
Amazing, thanks very much for that, Sarah. In terms of your day-to-day as well, what does that look like?
So if we've got big projects coming up, it's very much looking at the engagement strategy with, as I say, with councillors and local residents, but it's having an overview of the entire business. So right now, for example, we're looking at suits and uniforms and putting a bit of a policy in place for the business with that, and saving on costs, and looking at it from a brand perspective to get consistency. At the moment, on a match day, I sit basically on the accreditation desk for the red zone. So on a match day, we'll sign in the first team players, the management, the backroom staff, which is really interesting, to be honest. It's always nice to be involved in that kind of match day experience, as Emma touched on earlier. It's engaging with all the kinds of staff in the stadium as well. I need to know what's going on in the stadium on a daily basis to know if ever it's going to have an impact on the local community, and that relationship needs to remain strong. We've come to a place where we have quite an open and honest relationship with local councillors and the council, and that's something we want to encourage moving forward as well.
Brilliant, thanks for that. That was really interesting.
Awesome.
We've also got Rob on the call. Rob is going to give us a bit of an overview of how business has kind of impacted his pathway as well.
Yeah, cheers, James. So I first started my sort of school life where I wasn't really too academic. Wanted to become a football coach at an early age. Realised that I was absolutely no good at football, so the next best thing to do was to become a coach. So worked very hard. Went to college, did a BTEC, so very low level qualification, and gained my experience through different work experiences, working at different clubs, grassroots clubs, things like that. So I knew very well what I wanted to do, and I wasn't really academic at the time. I then went into schools, got offered a full-time job at a school as well, which then I became a PE specialist for there. That school then said, well, why don't you go to university? And I said, well, I'm not really too academic. Didn't really enjoy school, but the head teacher at the time pushed me on to do that. So ended up going to university at UCLan. I think we've got a few students at UCLan on the call now. So went there, did a business degree, got a job at Liverpool Football Club as a casual coach, and then started working my way up. Was basically running a program getting families involved in sport. So working with families in sport and things like that. And then after that, I've just become a employability coordinator, where it's a lot more business orientated. So I've took a little bit of a back step from coaching, and now it's a little bit more business orientated, where I've been speaking to people like Sarah, Omar, and Emma on a daily basis, setting business calls up like this and helping our community, organising mentoring programs where Omar's having a massive impact on different people's life. So Omar is actually on the call now. So what I'm going to do is I will make him a co-host, and James, if you want to introduce.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome to the call, Omar. Just to give a bit of an overview of Omar. Omar's the vice president of commercial development. It's always wanted to be in a job role within football. Has helped guide LFC BAME steering group as well. He's been really influential in kind of pushing forward the mentoring group, like Rob has said. Welcome to the call, Omar. Omar, would you be able to give a bit of an overview of your current role, your education, and other roles you've previously had as well?
Yeah, hi James. I know VP of Commercial Development is a bit of a mouthful. It's taken me a few months to be able to say it in one breath. So thank you. Thanks for having a go. Hi everyone. So as James and Rob said, I'm Omar. Really happy to be here. And sorry I'm late. I had a meeting that I couldn't shift. So look, in a nutshell, should we start with education, because that was kind of first. I'm glad to say my education got better with time. Definitely started off pretty badly. Never got into any of the schools that my parents wanted me to, and they were, not the best schools in the world. I think I wasn't born in England, so I think I was behind on English, which is my theory. But who knows? I may have just been a little bit slow to grasp things. Generally speaking, I got better with time, and as sort of James inferred, I had some mentoring when I was about 15, which really changed sort of my aspirations and got me in line, and I suppose just gave me a bit of a kick up the bum to start thinking and working a bit harder. So in the end, I did all right at school, went to college, went to uni, and I went to the University of Manchester and did business studies, because I always wanted to get into the business side of football, and I figured that's what I needed to do. I joined a company called Accenture on their graduate scheme, which is management consulting, which is a pretty broad term, I suppose, but it's just going into businesses and solving problems, essentially. And I joined Liverpool 6 years ago to do just that, really, to work on business problems that we had in the club. And I joined our strategy team, which was basically in charge of trying to guide the club in manners of strategy around, how do we improve our commercials so that we can be competitive on the pitch? Do we need to build a new main stand? Do we need to look at the training ground infrastructure? Should we make the TV channel bigger? What social media platforms do we need to go to? What markets do we need to be selling LFC retail, etc., etc.? So lots of different challenging strategy questions. And since then, that was my first role at Liverpool. After that, I moved over into the commercial team, where I worked on some of our partners, so Standard Chartered and Carlsberg and AXA and the likes of those who are tremendously important to making sure that the club's financially stable, and like I said, we can keep putting together the best possible squad and the best possible conditions to win games. And now my role changed into the third role, which is my current role, and I essentially probably wear two hats, really. The first is looking after our commercial growth, so working across all the departments, so that's partnerships and retail and our social stuff, our media team, our soccer schools, all of it, really, to try and make sure that we're growing and supporting the team to grow. And the second part is just helping Billy, our CEO, on various bits and pieces that we do across the board. So that's my education and I suppose my quick 6 years at the club.
That's brilliant. Thanks for that, Omar. In terms of any potential barriers that you've had along towards this career you're at now, a lot of people on the call might be starting out on that pathway. So would you be able to share any of those potential barriers that you might have come across? Yeah,
I think, to be honest, I've had loads of barriers, and I feel like I still will. I think, like I kind of said at the start, I wasn't born in England, so I came over from, I was born in Karachi in Pakistan, so we came over when I was 5. So it's fair to say, we didn't have much when I was younger, so there's a lot of sort of socio-economic barriers. The first in my family to go to uni, not a lot of money, definitely not nothing fancy around, tutoring or anything like that. Pretty rough schools to start with. So I think, initially my barrier was kind of socioeconomic, I suppose, in other words, just being a poor kid, essentially. And, you know, you just, there is a lot less opportunity for kids in that way. You know, I don't have an uncle that's a lawyer or an auntie that's an accountant, you know, or any of that stuff. I've got plenty of cab drivers, bus drivers, and cleaners to call upon, but not so much, you know, in what I used to call fancy jobs. So that was a bit of a barrier, and I suppose the only route that I had to address that was education. Really, I just had to dig in and work hard and try and get good grades to sort of try and lift me up that way, because it wasn't going to happen through favors or friends. So that's probably the first one, James. And the second one, which is more recent, is probably colour and race, which, you know, I haven't, you know, tried to put that to the back of my mind for all of my sort of 36 years of life so far, because, you know, it's a challenging thing to get into. But only recently I've started talking about it, and, you know, ultimately it's simple things where people make assumptions about you based on how you look, is one thing. And then, you know, my name's Omar Mohammed. It doesn't leave much room for guessing, you know, that I'm from a Muslim background. And generally speaking, you know, we open a newspaper and it's negativity and it's bad stuff. So I think, yeah, those types of race and religious boundaries, even though I'm not religious, it doesn't really matter. They have an impact on how people see you and how the world treats you. And you know, there's tons of examples of where people make assumptions about me because of the way I look or my name, basically. So I think those are probably the two big structural things, James. But you know, I think ultimately you've just got to be a little bit belligerent to those types of things, and just work hard and give your all, and hope that there's enough opportunity to make it through. And luckily for me, there has been.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much for sharing those with us, Omar. Appreciate that. So what we're going to do now, we're going to move on to the next segment of the call, and this will be some questions from the foundation staff to our guest speakers. What we'll do, I've got a couple of questions, and then the team have got a couple of questions to ask. After that, it'll be the chance for participants' questions to be asked out. So if you do have any, make sure you put them in the chat. They get sent over to Rob, and we can look to try and get as many of them out as possible. So the first question I'm going to ask all of you as guests, and we'll go on a bit of a round robin, is why is it important to be ambitious on your pathway to employment? So I'll start with Emma. Sorry, Emma, I know you've been kind of off the tour for a while. So yeah, Emma, if we're okay to start with you.
Yeah, of course. Again, apologies because I've not been speaking for a while. I think being ambitious, I think where we talked about the barriers, and Omar, brilliant listening to you. It's amazing to hear all the stories, even though we work together. We don't normally get to hear these sides of everybody's life stories, but you know, being ambitious is not just about your skill. It's not about your education. It shows your enthusiasm and your passion for wanting to achieve. And I think sometimes that stands out in people's minds more than actual education. Obviously, that comes down to it in the end of the day. But I think being ambitious, it makes you thrive and makes you stand out, to show that you are ambitious and you're wanting to achieve, and that you're not going to just sit back and let other people step in front of you, and that you are determined to achieve what you want to do.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Emma. Sarah, same question goes to you as well.
I think why it's important to be ambitious, I just think that you run your own race in life, basically. You know, you've got to kind of make it of what what you're given to you, basically. It's up to you to kind of thrive, to strive. As I said earlier about in regards to kind of school, for example, if you don't put the work in, then it's you who's not going to benefit at the end of it. So I think you've got that decision to make of, what do I want to make of my life? And then it's up to you to work hard to get there, because no one's going to give it to you, basically.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sarah. And the same question goes to you, Omar. You're on mute, yeah.
There we go. Sorry, I was having a bit of trouble getting off mute. Yeah, I think it's honestly, it's the most important thing. I think if you asked my mates, growing up where I grew up, there was actually a lack of ambition, and that's why they never really tried. They never tried. They never. That you've got, if you want to get ahead, then you have to at least see it and have a go. And be ambitious. I just think it's everything. I literally think it's the first step to doing anything. A career. We are talking about careers here, but with anything in life, if you don't have the ambition to get there, then it's not just going to fall into your lap. And I think if I think about, despite the stuff that I told you about challenges and stuff, I think all of my mates where we started off in similar places, all of us had a huge amount of ambition to get out there. And that's what's driven us forward. It's doing your bits. It's having a goal and working towards it no matter what. And so I think I'd encourage everybody here to be ambitious. And another thing is, people always used to put you down or sort of say, oh no, don't go for that. Maybe this is your level. What's that about? It's ridiculous. I think there'll be people that doubt you, but only you really know what your strengths are and what you can achieve. So I think you should absolutely aim high and be ambitious. Super important. And I'd say like Sarah said, it's just down to you really. Make your own journey and be as ambitious as you can and get your head down and work hard to get there.
Yeah, fantastic. Those are three really great answers to those questions there. So what we'll do now, we'll ask Rob. Rob, do you have a question to ask Emma?
Yeah, so we've got load of questions coming in as well. So there's a lot about employability. So what we'll do, if we don't get a chance to answer some of your questions, the employability team will be able to answer them. So we'll get back to you on the sort of generic employability questions. But I've got one for Emma. So being part of such a small team, as you know, and I think I was probably the biggest culprit of trying to get you and Mighty to do things on my previous project. Mm-hmm. How do you sort of manage the demand around the club for being such a small team? Is it planning or being organised, things like that?
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Rob. I think massively you need to be organised. Like you say, there is only 2 of us in a team, and there's a lot of different events and different departments that we need to support. And I think the organisation and making sure, without putting anybody above everybody else, there has to be priority. So we need to make sure as well we're fitting in with the aspects of what we're trying to achieve about young fan engagement. Is it right, the activities that we're being asked for? Because there's so many different requests that come in, you won't believe it. But when we said before that our Mascot program is so much different than any other one, and we have to position him right to make him the values that we have as a club or reflect back. But definitely, you've already answered the question. You have to be very, very organised.
Yeah, thanks very much, Emma.
Thanks for that, Emma. We'll move on to Gary now. Gary, do you have a question for Sarah, please?
Hello, everybody. Hey, Sarah. If you wasn't doing the job that you're doing now, what job would you be doing? What different role would you do? Like a fantasy job or your favourite job?
I think if you want me to answer this honestly, and really good question, I think, and I have said that, this is that if anything happens with my job, and touch wood it doesn't, I think there's 2 things. I think when I was younger, I'd always probably see myself having my own business. I think because I started with my own business, that's something that I probably would have saw myself for the future. I think now, and kind of having the experiences that I've had over the last kind of 5 to 10 years, and this is very honest, if I could have any job in the world, I'd be happy with a bar job in Bali, to be honest. I would be happy to live that coconut lifestyle, earning not a lot of money, but just getting by. Sometimes I think that we're kind of like defined by like society and what's around us. You know, we go to work to earn money, to pay our bills, to, you know, fuel our cars and all the rest of it. But sometimes you can go to other places in the world and see that they get by on not a lot, but they're quite happy. And sometimes I'd even say that they're potentially happier than we are a lot of the time. And I think that I'd love, if given the opportunity, one day, maybe it won't be until I retire, but I think, yeah, I'd be happy going and living on a beach somewhere, earning probably not a lot of money, but just being quite happy.
It sounds good to me, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great to me as well. So
Sounds like we'll all be joining you.
I know, yeah.
yeah. And finally, Jane, would you be able to ask Omar a question?
Hi everyone, it's been great listening to you all. Omar, could I just ask you, what was the best career advice you've received or that you could actually give someone?
Yeah. Career advice, crikey. Yeah, all right. Well, I think I've had sort of two careers, if you like. I've sort of gone for a job for the money, which was my first job, and you know, frankly, I had bills to pay, and I wanted to buy my own flat, and you know, I had to think about my family and my parents and how I was going to support them. So I think, you know, the first job was, I was a management consultant, like I said. It was in banking, and it paid well, and it had, you know, a fairly high status in London back then, and people were like, oh, that's, you know, that sounds fancy, whatever. But it didn't make me happy at all. It just didn't. It was boring, and I could never really get myself into it. And it's at that point that I really asked myself that very question, the one that you've just asked me. You know, what should I be doing, and what's my advice? And my advice would be to anybody is, try and do what you enjoy. Find a job that you enjoy, that will make you happy, and if you do it really, really well, the money will come later. You know, if I could start all over again, to Nick Sarah's question, I would have said, Omar, forget the money in your 20s. It's not important. You know, you can live off whatever like very little and still be happy. I would have gone into football coaching, and I probably would have earned very little at the start. But you know, I would have been doing something that I really, really love every day. And you know, I would have put my heart and soul into it, done it really, really well, and ultimately, by the age of 36, like I am now, I might be at, you know, a top club coaching in their department, and then that's where the money comes. So, my advice really is, you know, don't be led by other people or society. Pick something that you really enjoy, that makes you happy, that makes you get out of bed every day. Do that. Be the best you can at it, and the rest will take care of itself.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Well, thank you, Omar. That was great.
Brilliant. Again, great answers from all. So this leads us on to the last part of our event now. And before we do that, I'm just going to share my screen again. And this will be for the feedback and for the sign up to register your interest for the workshop we've got on Friday. So if you've got your phone at hand, just give the barcode a scan. I've also put the link in the chat for anyone who wants to sign up to that as well. So I'll leave that on there for 5-10 seconds, and then we'll get on to the last part of our call. Fantastic. Okay, so the last part of our call is the questions from participants on the call, and Rob has been getting these through. So Rob, have you got any questions that you want to ask? And if it's targeted towards any specific guest speaker, then go for it.
Okay, so there's quite a bit of employability questions coming through that I think the employability team could answer at a different day, because I know all three speakers are very, very busy at the moment. So as a team, we can do that after this call. So we've got a question from Elliot, who looks as if he's just finished university straight after COVID, and he's asking all the speakers whether you've got any advice for him who's just left university at probably one of the worst times he could have. So is there any advice for Elliot, who's just finished uni and he's looking to get his first career during the pandemic?
I think my advice right now would be take whatever experience you can. I think at a climate where, you know, you might have, I don't know what you've studied, but, you know, a job mightn't be available right now in that field. You know, jobs are probably hard to come by now more than ever, given the, you know, the pandemic and what's going on with the economy at the moment. But I think grab any little bit of experience, because even though it mightn't seem relevant to your career choice or your career path, it will be. You get experience from every kind of walks of life, and every job that you ever come across, it shapes you and it molds you moving forward. So even though it mightn't seem very kind of glamorous or on point or relevant to what you want to do long term, I'd just say grab what you can at the moment.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I've definitely been there myself. Just first point is it's perfectly normal to come out of uni and not have a job at hand. Like in any pandemic or no pandemic, that is perfectly normal. It's the first time in your life where you probably haven't got, like, you know, a path to go to. Like, you know, you finish school, you can go to college, finish college and go. It's sort of laid out. It's you know, I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm on my own from here. You know, there isn't a path that I can go down. And loads of my friends didn't have a job when they left uni on day one. So, you know, I agree with Sarah about finding experience. I also think right on the other flip side of things, it's about being patient as well. If you feel that you need to be, like, I wouldn't put too much pressure on yourself right now, because it's perfectly normal to leave uni without a job, and many people leave uni without any plan of any kind. So, you know, you've probably worked incredibly hard to get your degree, and, you know, you should probably just use the time to take some stock and yeah, don't panic, basically. It's you're not on your own.
Yeah, brilliant. And just one last thing for me would be, try to network as much as you can with people that are in the same industry as yourself, or people that have got common interests. There's lots of different resources out there. LinkedIn is an amazing one to connect with people. And also there's another one that's, I'm not selling these, by the way, but they're just great things to have a little look at. I don't know if you've heard about Meetup. And it's about people, and they're doing virtual events online as well. So just to keep your interests, your hobbies, there's lots of active people online, and network with people that have got, like I say, common interests or within the same industry that you want to go into.
Yeah, great stuff. Really good advice. Thanks for that. I've realised we've got not too much longer on the call left, so we'll try and get through a few more questions, and maybe in this round, if just one guest speaker could answer, we could get through a few more if that's possible. So Rob, have you got any more?
Yeah. So obviously, just making sure I'm not on mute. So obviously, working for an established football club is so hard to get into, and we're having lots of questions of, firstly, how to stand out within an interview process when there's so many people wanting a job within Liverpool Football Club. I think we're all very, very fortunate enough to be employed by the club. So we're getting lots and lots of different questions around sort of how to do it, how you stood out, and how to sort of beat everybody in the interview process for a corporate job.
Is anybody? Sarah's going to go.
Yeah, no, happy to take that one. I think when I interviewed for mine, I honestly, I wanted the job. I wanted the job more than any interview I'd ever gone for before. And I went in there with the mindset that this job's mine, basically. And when I say I went in with that mindset, I made sure that any question that I got asked, I had the answer to. I knew my experience more than anyone else, and I had to go in there with that confidence. But I think alongside that, which is so important, which, you know, if I've got a certain skill set and the person next to me has got the same skill set, what's going to give me the edge? And I think one of the best kind of traits that you can take forward with you is authenticity. And you need to be yourself. You can't go in there pretending to be someone else, because they're going to see right through you, basically. And I think that's one thing that I did. I went in and I was me. And there was kind of no airs and graces around it, because they were going to find me out anyway if I went there and kind of, you know, put a bit of an accent on or pretended I was someone that I wasn't. And I honestly think that was the big part of me probably getting the role, is that I went in and I was still corporate, I was still professional, I still spoke about my experience, but I was authentic. I was authentic as well with it.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Sarah. Rob, any more?
Yeah, we'll do one more, because there's so many come in, and like I said, me, James, Jane and Gary will try and get back to everybody. There's loads of things about looking to volunteer and how to get involved with such a big club, so we can get back to you on that. One's about sort of experiences and qualifications. So sort of, would you recommend to get lots of experience within a job role? Would you, there's questions on will masters and PhDs help you sort of get a role within the club? So if we can sort of get the gist of all the questions together, is experience versus qualifications. We probably ask a couple of people which you think will sort of benefit you more within a job role within football.
I can take this one initially. Like I said before, I don't have the qualifications to the role that I'm actually in at the moment. As I said, the job has developed over time. I had experience and I had qualifications in the performing arts, and my experience topped any of my education when I came for any of my roles. I did a lot of volunteering. Obviously, then there wasn't the restrictions of COVID, but I always took that. If I want to do something, I'm going to volunteer in that sector, that industry first, to see if I like it before I want to commit there. And I had a lot of experience. Even when I had a full-time job in that industry, I did still volunteered to make sure that I could help and mentor other people within that with the same interests. So in my experience, it was more experience over qualifications. But then over time, I am studying, because my job role has changed so much that you have to have that as a backup as well. And again, I suppose it all depends on different job roles. But for my experience, it was experience.
Perfect. So yeah, as I say, loads of questions coming in. I think we will have to wrap it up, because other speakers are so busy, and we've probably got calls on the hour. So I'll hand you back over to James, and we'll do our best to answer all of them when we can. Yeah,
thanks, Rob. I'm sure we could probably go through all these questions all day, and it's been absolutely fascinating hearing about all of your pathways. First of all, thank you very much for joining us on the call today and sharing your experience and pathways with us. It's been really kind of interesting and a real great insight. So from all the foundation team, thank you very much for joining us.
No problem.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
you.
you.
Pleasure.
I'm just going to share my screen again. There's been a lot of people on the call in the chat asking about the workshop. So we've got a workshop which will follow up this call tomorrow. This workshop will be focused on that ambition, that key kind of skill of ambition, which is one of our club values, and something which all of our guest speakers have spoke about today. The link should be in the chat, but again, this is the QR code to take you right to that form. This is a feedback form, but also kind of to register your interest in the workshop and future Careers Uncovered calls that we've got. This is the second in kind of the series of 8 Careers Uncovered calls. So again, if you sign up on this form, you'll be kind of notified of them as they're coming up as well. And the last part of our call is, let me just go on this here, is our safeguarding form. If any of you have any kind of safeguarding issues, this is our safeguarding number at the LFC Foundation. If you ring this, someone will be able to speak to you about any of those concerns, and we'll be able to redirect you or kind of push you in the direction which will be able to help you.
Okay, brilliant. Hope to see everybody tomorrow at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. And again, thank you to all our guest speakers.